And now we're ready to dive in. So it probably would be best if we start at the beginning, both with the Felix Hernandez story and when it comes to communication and conversation, which means we are starting with small talk. Some people call it chit chat. Some people call it useless. Some people are very tempted to throw that conversation aside in an effort to get right down to business, right? Because we're trying to get that new client and we're trying to lock up the next big deal, right? And we're trying to negotiate the contract that puts us over the top. Those are all really important conversations. But the conversation that changed your life happened way before that one ever took place. The conversation that made the greatest impact on that new client, on that new deal, with that new conference, with that new convention, might have taken place in an elevator, might have taken place at a conference or at a business lunch, or while sitting at an educational lunch at Safeco Field. It's those conversations that we need to make the most of in business because that's the way you get your foot in the door. Once the conversation turns to business, let's be very honest here. You guys are rock stars. You've got that under control. You can talk about food. You can talk about service. You can talk about the venue space that you're in. You can talk about how it can be used, but it's making sure that you get to those opportunities. And for that, we need a solid strategy in place. So we're going to start with a few guidelines when we enter these conversations, particularly small talk. And the beginning of this is small talk with people that you don't really know, right? You might have met them once or twice before, but you don't really know them. So we're going to start with a definition. Anybody ever looked up the definition of communication? Probably not, because I'm the word person and I like to do these sort of things. So I looked it up, and here's what it says. The dictionary definition of communication goes like this. It is the imparting or exchanging of information or news. The imparting or exchanging of information or news. Which, if you stop to think about for a second, it makes sense, right? There is one small problem with that definition. Well, there's many, but there's one that really jumps out to me, is that I promise you that my definition of information varies greatly from everybody else's in the room. Just ask my husband, right? In fact, I promise that most men and most women want two totally separate things when it comes to conversations, right? And we know this, but do you know how to put your finger on what it is? Okay, so here we go. In general, women in a conversation are looking for, has anybody heard this before? Looking for intimacy or a connection, right? Women are looking, and I see some heads nodding, and it's going, oh, okay, I get it, right? Now, this is in general. This means that when I go home and I talk to my husband at night and I talk on and on and on about my day, I am trying to create a connection with him. And the more times he kind of nods and engages with me, I think, great, I am on the right track, right? This is perfect. We're on the same page. He's listening to me. This is great, right? And then you get to the end of the conversation. You go, so what do you think, hon? And he goes, huh? Right? I do this because I think I'm establishing a connection. The more I talk, the more I think this is happening, okay? Men, this is how women can strike up a conversation in line for the bathroom. Okay? It doesn't matter where we're standing. We can strike up a conversation with anybody. Men, on the other hand, are looking for something totally different in a conversation. It's an I word. Any guesses as to what it is? Information. Yes. Men are looking for information. Now, there's a couple key things I want to point out. Number one, these are generalizations. And these are not my generalizations. This comes from Deborah Tannen. She is a linguist. She's done all sorts of studies on how men and women communicate at work. The generalization comes in if we're talking in the framework of small talk with people you don't know. It's just nice to get a general idea of what they want to talk about. Because you should be talking in the way that people want to hear you. You could have the best message in the entire world, but if you're not getting to them in the same way that they receive the information, they're going to block you out long before you get to finish.